with him. Jahangir, over to you.
All right, we're joined now by Adi Godrej, the chairman of the Godrej Group from Mumbai. Mr. Godrej, thank you very much for talking to us here on NewsX. You're hearing all the information coming in. 45 new ministers, sir.
We're talking to you.
Thank you, sir. 45 new ministers, 24 ministers and 11 members, 11 MOSs with independent charge. A shrunk cabinet, 71 ministries under Manmohan Singh, only 35 under Narendra Modi. First, your response to that, sir.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. There were far too many ministries. For the same subject, there were different ministers, and that caused a lot of confusion. So I'm glad that the number of ministers to be sworn in is much lower than in the UPA government. That will create for more efficiency. I do hope that they make sure that in each particular field, there are not multiple ministries.
Yeah, I think the promise has been that one person will essentially handle one area, even if he has to look at different departments which presently may lie in different ministries. You may also have people like Nitin Gadkari who get charge of transportation overall, and that would include civil aviation, railways, also road transportation. So that seems to be clear indications from Narendra Modi. Would you see this, sir, as his first delivery on the promise of good governance?
Yes, I think it will be much more efficient. I think decision making will be easier, delays will be reduced. So I welcome the move to have fewer ministers and fewer ministries.
All right. Now, this group of 45 people, as I said again, 24 full ministers, 11 ministers of state with independent charge and 10 ministers of state. These 45 people and the Prime Minister himself, of course, carry a huge responsibility. First and foremost, of course, kick-starting the economy. The BJP's promise was that within 100 days, they would bring inflation down. Do you believe that to be a practical promise, or do you dismiss it as an election talk?
No, I think it's very doable. First of all, in the budget, if they indicate that fiscal deficit will be controlled, and there are two major ways to do so. One is to eliminate most subsidies. The UPA government had already started to reduce the fuel subsidies. If they can do it in a greater measure, I think that would help cut government expenses considerably. But the most important way they can contain fiscal deficit is to quickly privatize government assets. There are many ways of doing it. Of course, they'll have to take some decisions in principle how they're going to go about doing it. But monetizing government assets is a major way to ensure that fiscal deficit is under control. Once you indicate that fiscal deficit is under control or about to be under control, automatically the Reserve Bank will be able to reduce interest rates and inflation can come under control. Of course, there are other things that need to be done to contain inflation. Supply chain in certain items like fruits and vegetables need to be improved very considerably. India is a country where consumers tend to pay more than twice as much for things like fruits and vegetables than farmers get. In some cases, much more than twice, maybe 3 times. So I think a proper supply chain management, of course, that will take a little time, that can't be done overnight, can also help very considerably.
Okay, but let me just ask you one more question before I come back to the idea of selling off public assets. GDP growth has also been very contained. Job growth has also been very low. What do you believe this government would need to do with this particular Council of Ministers? What do you think would be a reasonable estimate or a reasonable thing to ask them to attend to in the next 100 days to boost GDP growth and to boost job growth?
I think the goal of the government and the country should be to have a minimum 8% GDP growth in the next financial year. That's the year 15-16. A few things need to be done in that direction. One, I think some of the negative perceptions about India need to be changed, especially on the tax front. Retrospective tax legislation, demands by tax authorities based on transfer pricing, etc., should be reversed. They have already the NDA leaders have mentioned that they plan to do that. That itself can have a very positive effect. Secondly, fiscal stimulus needs to be provided because manufacturing growth, industrial growth has become negative. We need to provide some fiscal stimulus. For example, investment is badly hurt because of the minimum alternate tax. On one side, you give incentives for investments based on geographical investments, based on certain sectors, etc. And on the other side, the company doesn't enjoy it because of minimum alternate tax. So investments in the last 2 or 3 years have been affected. We need to make the right changes in that direction.
Okay.
And once you do that and you improve the ease of doing business, which I'm sure this government is determined to, because they have mentioned that they want minimum government and maximum governance, that means ease of doing business will improve.
Okay.
If all of this is combined, then GDP growth in India will revive. And of course,
let me ask you
if
this
you can
globally.
introduce the goods and service tax legislation at an early date, it will add 2 percentage points to GDP growth, other things being equal.
So abroad already Narendra Modi is being called the strong man of India. There's a lot of interest in his swearing in. There's a sense that India is qualitatively changing as a nation. Give us a first-hand account of the optimism that we keep hearing about in India Inc. How do you and some of your colleagues in industry, what are your feelings as you see Narendra Modi now become the Prime Minister? Do you share this optimism that everyone is talking about? Give us a sense of what it's like in your sector, sir.
Yeah, I very much share this optimism. I think the feel-good factor has improved dramatically. The perception is very good. I think we will have a strong PMO against a very weak PMO in the UPA regime. I think Narendra Modi clearly understands what steps add to growth, what steps detract from growth. I think he will make sure that a lot of emphasis is put on the first set of steps which add to GDP growth and a strong avoidance of steps that detract from GDP growth. So I expect the PMO will be very active, and some of the ministers sought to be appointed, we have heard about, of course we'll know only by this evening, I think could add to that feel-good factor.
So what's your personal sense of
that
Narendra
after a
Modi?
very long time, we have a government with a majority. No, I think the sense is that he understands economics, he understands what gets GDP growth up and will bring such factors into play so that the entire growth scenario in India changes.
One thing we also keep hearing about that is expected by this new government, by Narendra Modi, is sort of a change in emphasis from the United States onto Japan and China. A big part of that engagement would of course be economic. Japan has been a big investor in Gujarat. Now, would you be expecting to see Japan become a much bigger player in India's economic future, as also China, sir?
Well, I think Japan certainly, very clearly the indications we have received from Japanese delegations here, the Japanese Prime Minister, the fact that the Emperor visited India recently, the fact that Japan is having geopolitical problems with China will clearly lead to an emphasis on India from the Japanese in terms of both investments and business. But I don't think the government will move away from the strong investment and business relations we have with the US. I think investments from and business with almost all countries in the world will improve. And I think the excellent step he took of inviting the heads of government of the SAARC countries to the swearing-in ceremony, I think clearly indicates that he will reach out to other countries. Now, I don't know what steps he takes in terms of combining the commercial parts of the government, external commercial parts of the government with the external affairs ministry. There was some talk of that.
There's a lot of talk of that happening as well, that's right. So what is your expectation of economic ties with Pakistan? Since you talked about the SAARC heads of state coming here, with Nawaz Sharif in Delhi, do you also believe that there is sort of revived opportunity for a free trade agreement or closer economic ties with Pakistan, sir?
Yes, it's hugely important. Pakistan is a country with which we have a very long land border. Geographically, it makes a lot of sense to trade across the border with Pakistan. Some think tank estimates have indicated that if India and Pakistan have free trade, other things being equal, the addition to the Pakistan GDP growth would be about a percentage point, and to the Indian GDP growth about half a percentage point. So it's very important. Now investments between the two countries have been freed up. Trade has, more items can be traded. I think we must work on improving our economic relations, both investment and trade, very considerably, because I think with strong economic relations, the geopolitical relations with Pakistan will also improve, which will be of great advantage to both the countries.
I want to go back to the United States. We know that there is some tension between Narendra Modi himself personally and the United States because of the lack of the visa. But knowing Narendra Modi personally, do you believe he would be the kind of person who would allow the national interest of close ties with the United States to be affected by any personal baggage that he may have vis-a-vis Barack Obama or Washington?
No, not at all. In fact, he has publicly stated that he would not look at the past on taking decisions, whether it is with political opponents or whether it is with countries like the US. And in fact, he has welcomed a strong relationship with the US. And I expect that he will not allow this past baggage to affect his decision making.
All right. So one question on the stock markets, they're booming, they're at record highs. A lot of this is being attributed to Narendra Modi, his government coming in. Do you expect this to continue and last, or do you believe that this is sort of an aberration, an outbreak of enthusiasm, and that it would be moderating itself?
No, I think this is only the beginning. I think the stock market will do extremely well. Remember that even in rupee terms, in 2008, our stock market was quite high. Now, of course, it's a little higher in rupee terms than what it was in 2008. But if you look at the passage of time between 2008 and now, the increase is not very much. If you look at it in dollar terms, in fact, we are lower than what we were in 2008.
Because of the depreciation in the rupee.
So there's tremendous scope for the stock market to do well together with the Indian economy. But of course, it will follow the Indian economy, and it will follow how well Indian companies fare with the economy improving.
So Godrej Industries is a big player in defense already, given the very small space that exists for the private sector in defense. Do you believe that this government is one that would change that would allow private sector companies a much bigger role and play in the defense sector, sir?
Yeah, first of all, I want to just clarify that Godrej Industries, which is a listed company, is not in the defense sector. Godrej and Boyce, which is a private company in our group,
I stand corrected. Godrej and Boyce.
And I do expect this government will open up the defense sector. India has become the largest importer of defense equipment in the world, and I think this government will clearly look to ensuring that the percentage of our defense equipment we manufacture within the country increases dramatically.
Yeah, General VK Singh has been a big proponent of that. He's a member of this cabinet. Is that part of the reason you believe that the disposition is such that the private sector would be allowed to get a much bigger footprint in defense, sir?
No, I think everybody, even earlier in the defense sector, were in favor of that. There were only, you see, we must remember that there were some socialist elements in the Congress, and perhaps earlier with the support they got from the communists, that they did not want the right kind of foreign investment to bring in the right kind of technology into the country. India should be open. India should welcome foreign technology and foreign managerial inputs to further our economic growth.
So I want to go back to the issue of investments in manufacturing for jobs. 10 years of UPA rule has essentially been seen as a period of jobless growth. Apart from GDP growth, are there any, this government has promised to create some, huge number of jobs. I forget the exact figure, it was something like 2.5 million or something. What do you believe is the one essential thing that this government would have to do to create jobs? Because India has one of the youngest populations in the world and they don't have any jobs.
In all fairness, the UPA 1 did create a lot of jobs. Perhaps in UPA 2, job creation was very low, especially in the last 3 years. However, I expect this government to pay a lot of emphasis to job creation while we grow. First of all, reasonably high rates of growth itself will be very favorable for job creation. The other area where I expect this government to do a lot in terms of job creation is skilling and training. I like to sometimes say there's no unemployment in India, it's only unemployability. Whenever we have been able to skill and train people, they have been able to get good jobs. We are short of skilled and trained people, so a virtuous cycle can be built with strong skilling and training, and integrating that into the growth of the economy. And I think this government will pay a lot of attention to that aspect of economic growth.
So you're also a big player in recent years in real estate. The market has really been stagnant for the last year or two. Do you believe that real estate prices in India are also headed northwards now that the new government is being sworn in?
Well, to answer your question, I will answer it in two parts. I think the real estate sector will flourish. I think the real estate sector is already seeing, just on sentiment, better inquiries, better demand. But I don't think the prices will go up, because there is a lot of possibility in expanding real estate without increasing costs. I think we are a country where land is short. We are one of the most densely populated countries in the world. We should have policies that more efficiently use land in our country. I expect this government will do that. For example, FSI can be increased and ensure that that doesn't create any dislocations by putting a lot of investments into infrastructure at the same time. I expect that will be the way forward for real estate development in India, and I think that will be very good, not just for the economy, for growth, but for consumers too. And actually, residential real estate prices could come down if we utilize land more efficiently in our country.
Okay, well, that's mixed, because I think a lot of consumers would be happy to know that real estate prices won't go up, but a lot of real estate businesses might be a little bit less enthused by what you just said. So are you worried that that may have an adverse impact on GDP growth, sir? All right, we've seemed to have lost the link with Adi Godrej there. Give us a minute to try and get it back for you. In the meantime, I'm going to toss to my colleague Athar and see if we can get some of the latest.
All right, Jhangi, we'll come back to you if you do get Adi Godrej back. Meanwhile, let's go across to Vandana, who's with us right now, and she can tell us exactly what's happening on the streets near